Right, we're going to go into a few questions. There's not much in the way of intel. There's a couple of points that need to be pointed out, and we'll go into op-eds then. What do you know, or what can you tell us about the Gladio Code? What type of PSYOP is this? A secret army created by the CIA during the 1950s to organise resistance in the event of a Soviet invasion of Western Europe has finally come in from the cold, and the disclosures of its past actions are producing a political flap that stretches across the continent. The existence of a clandestine paramilitary network codenamed Operation Gladio was disclosed recently by Italian Prime Minister Andreotti in a speech to his nation's Senate. Now, since then, European officials have described similar operations in most of the other, wait for it, NATO countries. No surprise. The CIA-backed paramilitary network included units in Belgium, France, Greece, West Germany and Holland. And according to the European newspaper and news service reports, the operation was expanded to all of Western Europe by 1959, including Sweden and Switzerland. And the Mirai botnet, a powerful cyber weapon undercover agent for DNEF Paris 2009 through 2012, protected agent for Mossad in 2013 through 18, informing the agents for the Belgian Justice and the Belgian French Secret Service and ministers 2017 and 2018, informing agents for other agencies including the FBI, 450 emails exchanged and 150 received between 2014 and 2018. As a forced agent for Gladio. Well, I can't add much more to that. It's fairly comprehensive just reading that out. But yes, I'm well aware of Gladio and the hundreds, if not thousands, of other Langley operations surrounding it. And it's kind of this is something that's been going on a long time, where they're creating splinter groups, if you like, which NATO is in and of itself, and a bit like Steele, Robert David Steele, creating open source, all information learned from the CIA. And he still technically works for the CIA, but it looks like a private company. It's the same as the government. You know, it's run by these security companies. That's how it works. The government collects the money in and hands it over to these private security, Blackwater type people. Citadel in New York. I'm trying to remember the name of the UK company that went bust, Carillion. They ran the UK government. They had the money. And Langley and others have been setting up these shell corporations and shell companies and private security and all kinds of others. It's still all operated from the central hub, but it makes it look like private. And Gladio, as it said, a secret army. And we the people in America have paid for all that. That's the golden thing. Can you give us a brief summary about the route races? Well, there was 5. Black, red, yellow, brown and white. Not as much as I can say on that. There's much discussion about the tribes. We know that there was 5 tribes. Some are saying there was 7 around the time of the Draco Fun and Games 16,500 years ago. But then the white race was here 110,000 years ago and previous. You know, there's been many different civilizations, and it's all a bit convoluted as to which time period. And this, even amongst the tribal people, they have difficulty with some of the knowledge because of the different time eras and the overlaps. Was Hyperborean the first race, and where did they come from? Well, before Hyperborea, that's a more modern day name, there was D'Auria. It was a whole continent north of Russia. And it was the ultimate in humanity. It was the white race. They were the heirs, who then taught the Rus, who then spread out and taught the Aryan people. And of course the ongoing battle to destroy that group, even from 110,000 years ago, still goes on today, as covered in From Russia with Love 4. And no, they didn't come from Sirius. The heirs are from Ursa Minor. Can you explain the 13 zodiacs? Since we are fixated on 12, the only one that I can really say is Ophiuchus was the 13th. There used to be 13 months of 20 days, which means the Earth was closer to the Sun at that time. And we've been moved 3 or 4 times. But look up Ophiuchus, the serpent, brother of the snake. Do you have any knowledge what's going on in Western China with the Uyghurs who have been rounded up and put in concentration brainwashing camps? I suspect it's the Black Dragon scoundrels. From what I've heard, it's a huge humanitarian crisis that needs much more attention. Well, given part of why Team Bubba is up and running, and particularly David Ray, they're being paid by Blackwater. Why? Because we exposed Eric Prince's training camp in that region, the Muslims. And then we, of course, gave evidence of Afghanistan, Iraq and Yemen, which then lost him more contracts. So it's the way it is. But yes, we are aware of that, not to perhaps the levels you have. I can't keep up with everything, but dragons are involved, the Asian black dragon, and it's just awful. And this is why we really don't need stupid people playing stupid games and focus on real issues. While you're focusing on stupid issues, people are getting killed left, right and centre and robbed by banks left, right and centre. That's far more important than focusing on nonsense. Can you give us some details about G47 Global Initiative and G47 Marketplace, and will it interact with the Manor Trust? I am aware of that only because a connection to a certain person who has worked with that guy. I don't know too much about what they're trying to do. Whether they will interact with the trust at a later date remains to be seen. Those who say they were Jews have enslaved humanity through lies and Acacia to enlighten them mentally and spiritually. They have kept this secret as a control over humanity and injected fluoride into Americans. It's not just Americans. It was in Europe far earlier. Plant medicine is proven to cure addiction to alcohol and other drugs, and the use of it can eliminate their Jew-owned sorcery, drug, pharmaceuticals and medical parasites. Well, Trump today has announced he's not taking donations off pharmaceutical companies, which is a start. If I was him, I would write an executive order. Any politician found taking payments from pharmaceutical are fired on the spot. Again, these are things that people need to concentrate on. These pharmaceuticals are killing us all. Please explain what black magic is and white magic. I did a full piece on that back in October. It is on Patreon. I'm going to go and check it up. Neither are good, because it always comes with a price that we're naive in the actions of it. That's the problem. It's a bit like the genie, or the gin-y coming out the bottle, the alcohol. You may get your 3 wishes, but it will come at a price. It always does. And this is part of the myth that white magic is light magic, which is not necessarily, because you're still calling in the non-formed people to do the magic. And those non-formed people are 99.9% not good. So you may agree, and they may perform your magic. People often think it's them who's doing the magic. When you're doing that type of magic, it's not. It's the non-form entities, and you are enrolling yourself and binding yourself into a contract with them that will have long-lasting effects. Now, there's abilities that people have which may be classed as magic, but that's your own power. You're not binding a contract with other people or other entities. And sadly, very few have reached sufficient soul development and personal responsibility to have switched their own magic, if you want to call it, I would say abilities on. So that's why the clowns use black magic and dark magic, because they're never going to soul develop the way they act. So they just bind the contract, they don't care. They're dark anyway. But white magic's no better. Who was really Moses? Several. It's not a name, it's a title. That's why you had Tut, Moses, 1, 2, 3 and 4. Tut was the Moses of that time. And there was 4 of them. You know how many Moses in total? Who knows? But Moses, Ra, Baal, these are all titles. Who are the UPU? Universal Protection Unit. Where are they from? Everywhere. Is the British government in serious trouble over spying against Trump? The British government didn't spy on Trump. It's MI5 and GCHQ, along with the NSA, which is a subsidiary of GCHQ, and also the Blue Dragon Group again, who dealt with MI5 Steele, not Robert David Steele, might as well be. The Steele dossier that started all this Russian collusion. It was all fake. That was MI5. Blue Dragons was Clinton asked for it. So the government's not in serious trouble. The media will portray it that way, because they won't tell you who the real control is, no more than the media's going to tell you that the deep state run the American government. It's the way it works. Could Thomas tell us more about registrations? Because I only know that the deep state makes money off registrations, not as much as they used to. Reg, it means king, so you were signing up at the behest of the king, which was Marduk. That's where all those registrations went. That's where all the birth certificates went. But that was stopped in 2007. Marduk cut it all off, which is why the clans and the families and the financial system, plus the work of Kim and some others, ended up with the global economy crashing, as they couldn't leverage it anymore. Essentially, Marduk cut them all off. He collected everything by then. And tasked them to finish the job off and get rid of humans by 2012, which they failed to do. How did your first visit to Florida change your timeline? I could answer that many ways. I hadn't been on vacation for near 9 years, because I don't like drinking all day, and I don't like lying on the beach all day either. And which is kind of the tradition UK holiday or vacation. And I'm one of the type that likes to be entertained if I go on vacation. Other people like to entertain themselves. I'm just not that ilk. So I want to see things or do things. So I actually wanted to go to California. Thankfully I didn't. And Florida was a bit cheaper, and I ended up going, agreeing to go. I wasn't happy that it was 2 weeks. Hi, Drake. Because I thought I would be bored. Most other vacations I went on, after 3 days I was bored. You know, so many, you go to these European holiday destinations, and it's the same 4 shops. Well, you get bored after the first one on the first day. I've never been one for shopping too much. And like I said, I don't like drinking all day. I don't like drinking all night either. And lying on the beach bores me silly. So off to Florida we went, and I got off the plane, and 3 days went by and I felt different. I'm thinking, why haven't I felt like I want to go home already? And then a week went by, and then I'm thinking, this feels like home, which was quite a shock for me at the time. It just feels like home. Maybe I was there in the past, I don't know. Someone suggested that I was, but who knows. But it felt like home, and then it became kind of an obsession for me. I wasn't that wealthy, you know. It's cost a lot of money to come over with a family of 4 and go to all the Disney parks, etc. And it got to a point where I was coming over 3 or 4 times a year, half of them on my own, because I needed to be in Florida. I was happier there. I was never happy in England, ever, you know. And so it changed everything. And I knew, I didn't know what it was, but I knew then, when I left in 2002, I was leaving for a big purpose and a big reason. I just didn't know what it was. it was kind of meant to be. And here I am 17 years later, 16 years later, no, 17 years later. And the idea of going back to England just doesn't appeal. So it changed everything. Had I not come then, maybe I would still be in England now. So it changed everything. Could I have done this job in England? No. Different mindset over it. It's far more restrictive over there than it is here in certain ways. So it changed everything. You mentioned a significant energy wave. I didn't say it was necessarily an energy wave, but I get your drift. That would have profound results. Are you able to elaborate more on what this might mean? No. If and when it's ready, I will say so. If not, it'll be kept quiet. You just got a heads up on it, that's all. Was the owl always associated with evil, or was something they changed to represent evil? The latter. They've changed lots of things. The Illuminati wasn't evil to begin with. You know, everything. They've subverted everything. The goat, you name it. It's the way they are. You know, anything representing, like the owl represents wisdom. And they've made sure with the bullshit history that nobody has any. Or tried to anyway. You know, they've desecrated the lion for their ends. You know, the list goes on. I heard in one of your podcasts that there's two questions on this. I'm going to roll it into one. That Rudolf Steiner was essentially a puppet for the control system, and a lot of people seem to revere him in the old media. I have a daughter who goes to Waldorf Steiner Charter School, and I'm really curious to understand how he's part of the dark forces. I resonate with a lot of his teachings. There's a lot of good stuff in there. That's what they do to pull people in. I don't know whether I actually did a whole piece. I don't know, I threatened to do it, and maybe I got sidetracked, of some of the plethora, and I mean plethora, of scandals in Waldorf schools. Now, what I do know is they're not teachers. Now, will that apply to all Steiner schools? I'm unsure. But all the elite children go to Steiner schools. Why? Because they get training there. The teachers are trainers, they're not teachers. And yes, it talks about enlightenment and this and that, a bit like the New Age. It pulls you in, but there's a hidden hook. And I received a vast amount of data from at least 8 countries describing some of the behaviour of things that went on in Waldorf schools. What you got to remember is the Svarli show, Illuminati 1 and 2, and it tells you what they do to the children of elite families. Personally, I know one very closely and what he went through. You can't even begin to describe it. And that's what takes place, was covered in that show, from 0 to 6. And where did he go then? Waldorf Steiner schools, all of them. Rothschilds, Rockefellers, you name it. And the teachers are taught to tell the children, which is echoing the Farley material, to disassociate from their parents and are encouraged to be touchy-feely with the children. And like I said, I received a whole heap of data. Canada, America, Britain, you name it, highlighting some of the issues that went on. Violence, sexual abuse, mind control. What teacher has the right to turn around and tell the class to disassociate themselves from their parents? That's why I have that stance. Now, Steiner was connected with, a lot of his material came from the Blavatsky era. They were all mixing with the same people. Blavatsky, Steiner, Crowley, all were linked in this like philosophical society and theosophical. No, that was eugenics and Darwinism. And yet again, people have been duped because they hear some nice words, oh, love and light and an enlightenment, when it's all bollocks and dark magic. And, a teacher encouraged to be touchy-feely with the kids. That's pedophilia. That's why. Go and listen to the Farley show. And all those children that are in those programs then go to Steiner schools. There's a reason why. Because it's a continuation of training. They're not teachers. Trainers. Like, we had two in the alt media, didn't we? That I exposed last year. Not good. I think this is the final question. When I tell people about THI, they always ask, where does the info or intel come from? I would be sarcastic and tell them it comes from THI. It's correct, isn't it? I tell them Thomas is in contact with inside sources, and some are content with this and some are not. Is this the best answer to this question? Well, when you analyse it, this is a problem again, is it not, of a lack of thinking again on the part of the people who asked that question. And it kind of would be nice if they went to all the other shows in the alt media and asked the same question, which never seems to happen. But never mind. But the problem is, do people really think or understand what they're asking? And so, say I turn around and started telling you my sources, and those people get killed. Was that answer worth it? Say I told you and now you know. What difference does knowing that answer mean to the questioner or anybody else? It doesn't really change nothing in their life knowing who someone else's sources are. None whatsoever. But it potentially puts people's lives at risk and possibly jeopardise ongoing operations. People really need to start thinking way more than they currently are. This is a war, and war has casualties. But it's not for those who sit at keyboards and demand these type of answers. You know, Kim and I's life's at risk every day. For me personally, it was rather close on Monday. This is our life. It's easy for people to sit there and ask questions and demand things that are not going to change their life, whether they know the answer or not. Let's look at it another way. Say I gave you some random names of high-level people who are my sources. Let's just say Putin. Would people believe it? No guarantee, is it? Or Trump and or Q, would people believe that? Or say I said, because lots of people around the world believe in him, say I said, I'm getting my intel from Jesus. Would they believe he was speaking to me? Would that actually validate to those people the information because Jesus has given me the intel? So you see, it doesn't really matter what the answer is, does it? Because people are either going to believe or they're not. And the answer to the question is a question back. And maybe this can be your answer to people. Has the intel been put out in our show been proven correct far more times than not? That's the key. Who or where it came from is kind of irrelevant, is it not? When people really think. We're going to have a music break and we'll get into the rest of the show. I think given the people needing to thinking, we're going to play this one again, Think Differently.